Okay, so I've got one last video for you. Um, it's going to be a lot vaguer than the other ones, but I hope it'll help you study a little bit. It's just about some of the big themes that we've gone over in the class, sort of a cumulative big idea review. Um, I don't know what will be on the final. I got some ideas of what may very well be an essay on there, because these are things that we've been talking about throughout the entire class. So again, this is just a maybe, but I'm hoping this will maybe at least guide you down some right paths. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but I want to at least give you an idea of what I think may be on the final. So 4 things we're going to go over. First of all, let's look here at religious evolution. Okay, so Stoll spent a ton of time talking about sort of Christianity's evolution in America. Every single section had something about it. So let's talk about that a little bit. When we're talking about North America, first thing you got to talk about is Puritans. Okay, Puritans and Pilgrims come over here. You got to remember all that stuff about England, about Church of England, about Protestantism getting started up with Martin Luther, all that good stuff, and how all of it comes over here. The thing to remember with the Puritans: strong Protestant tradition in the North, very educated, and they're going to have a very strong hold there. It's going to have a deep political effect. Puritanism translates into the First Great Awakening. First Great Awakening, there's a couple other denominations, Baptists are around and stuff like that, but what the First Great Awakening is really about is, hey, whatever happened to that religious zeal that we had amongst our Puritan forefathers, it's gone. It's not here anymore. So, you have guys like Winthrop who come along and they kind of get the country into a spiritual fervor, and folks are going to get way more religious, and it's going to have a pretty deep effect. To the point where we're going to have whole swaths of the nation that are going to get pretty hyped up on religion. A little bit later, we're going to go into the Second Great Awakening. Second Great Awakening, even more powerful than the first. Here we're going to get a whole mess of denominations. We're going to get Mormons, and we're going to get Seventh-day Adventists, and then we're also going to get Methodists. It's going to be a lot of denominations coming to their own, and religion's really going to go on fire here. Huge sections of Kentucky and the South are going to get basically wild with religion. This is the era of the camp meetings. Really important stuff. People are going to get really fired up. It's an important age because the Methodists are not going to be big on slavery, especially John Wesley. And this is going to get a lot of people whipped up about slavery because they're going to look at it as a religious issue that God will surely punish America for the sin of slavery. So it becomes sort of a really important matter for him. The next big thing I talk about is after the Civil War. After the Civil War, things die down religiously. People are starting to ask, where was God during this horrifying tragedy that killed hundreds of thousands of people? This is also the rise of the agnostic system, which kind of like agnostic beliefs become popular in the United States. This is going to be basically believing that there's a higher power that's guiding things, but you can't put a name to it. You don't really know what's going on. There could be a God, there may not be. It's a kind of this, a little bit cynical, but definitely gaining some ground after the Civil War. That religious fervor of the Second Great Awakening is no more. But here's the idea. Puritans, First Great Awakening, Second Great Awakening, post-Civil War. Puritans, first big religious group. First Great Awakening, America starts to get really fiery for Christianity, but we're not too many different denominations. There's like Presbyterians and Baptists and straight up Puritans. Second Great Awakening, we're going to have an explosion of denominations. People are going to get totally worked up for religion, and it's going to fire up stuff like abolitionists. And then post-Civil War, starting to move away from religion a little bit. People starting to doubt God's purpose and not quite understanding what's going on. if God's quite as involved as we think. A bit of cynicism sort of sinking in. Okay, so that's sort of a brief outline of how things kind of go religiously. Okay, let's move on. Differences between the North and South. There's a lot more than these, but these are some of the big ones. I just wanted to give a real brief overview of this. Okay, things you've had drilled into your head. You should know all of these by now. First one, North, community oriented. We've got loads of towns, loads of cities. People are working together in factories and in shipyards. It's a very communal place. South, individualistic. People have their own farms. They're doing their own things. There's not that many big cities, not that many big factories. Individualistic. Another thing, North has a diverse economy. We have all kinds of different manufacturing, different factories. We have shipbuilding and fisheries and all kinds of unique, interesting stuff. South, cotton. Tons and tons of cotton. Yeah, there's some tobacco, sugar, rice, agrarian sort of stuff, but it's not going to be any way as economically diverse as the North, and the North is going to have a lot more money because of that. Another thing, North, urban, again, cities, all that sort of stuff. South, rural, not that much infrastructure. Things are spaced out, and that's going to play a big part in the Civil War. Things aren't going to be as easy to get to as they are in the North, and that's going to affect a lot of army movement and stuff. North, industrialized, okay? Lots of factories, manufacturing, all that stuff. South, agrarian, definitely hitting that economic thing over and over again. North, way more educated than the South. This is where all the big universities are. Remember, the Puritans were extremely educated, believed in hardcore education. Puritans are not as strong in the South. Actually, not in the South at all. South is just slightly dumber. They're not quite with it with the educational game. Other one, this is the big one, free labor versus slave labor. There's going to be free wage labor in the North. People are going to, they're going to let the free market sort of reign supreme there. Slave labor in the South. Slave labor is going to generate some really high profits, but it's going to be a contentious issue that will eventually lead to the Civil War. There are tons more differences, and that question could be phrased in a million different ways. But think about that. Differences between the North and South and sort of the connotations behind those differences. What do they mean? A lot of these translate directly into the Civil War. So think about that sort of stuff. Let's keep moving. Okay, down here. Okay, we have Republican evolution. So we have these Republican ideals. We've talked about it a million times with Jefferson's Republic. I think I got there we go. Okay, Jefferson's Republic. Remember, agrarian, individualistic, sort of an ideal world. Everybody's got their own farm, all that sort of stuff. That's going to change. Okay, so that's Jefferson, the beginning of the nation, stuff like that. Then we're going to have the Second Great Awakening. Second Great Awakening is going to make us a religious republic. People are going to associate religion with America. It's a Christian country, a city on a hill. All that sort of mentality. Very, very important. Definitely going to add that to the Republican definition. Jacksonian era. Jackson is going to make this a democratic republic. You say, wait, aren't we a democracy? We're a democratic republic. What that means, you remember Jackson, he was all mad because he lost his election to John Quincy Adams, even though he won the popular vote. He wrote this and said, we need to be a democratic country, a country that cares about the individual, who cares about the voter, who's going to appeal to the voter. Very, very important stuff. This is when male suffrage, universal male, this is when male suffrage is going to come about, white male suffrage, saying that every vote matters. Very important, definitely going to change American democracy. Then we have the Industrial Revolution. That's going to make us a capitalist republic. Money is going to be a big part of what makes America, what makes a good business, what makes us thrive as an economic powerhouse. Think about the North with all their factories and manufacturing. Very American, all about the money. It's going to deeply change that definition. Finally, we have the Civil War. The issue of slavery brings this to a head. We are now a free republic. What does that mean? It means it's for everyone. That idea from that idea of the right to pursue happiness can apply to everyone, whether you're black or white. It doesn't matter. The Civil War is going to change that. And just think about how often we use the word freedom today. We're fighting for freedom, and all that sort of stuff. That's very much the rhetoric that we use in our country today. So very important stuff. But here's the idea. Jefferson had this vision for the Republic. And he felt like everybody had this vision. This is how we see America. But the reality is that vision changed. We still saw ourselves as a republic, but suddenly it became a religious republic, a democratic republic. It became a capitalist republic, a free republic. All these things got added to it, and it became something new entirely. So that's sort of the evolution of that term and what it means to Americans. I'm not sure how that question could be written, but definitely look at all the notes you have about sort of what it is to be Jefferson's idea of the republic and the ideal republic. Don't get this confused with Republican, like Lincoln. Not the same thing. That's a political party. This is a political ideal right here. Okay? Last thing. Slavery. Yeah, let's stick over here. Okay, so you notice I don't have much up here. That's because slavery, we've spent so much time on slavery, this could go anyway. I guarantee you there will be something on slavery for the cumulative essay. So there's a lot I could say about this, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say the areas where I think the question might come from. First of all, arguments for and against slavery. I went over this in one of my videos. Talk about the religious background on that, religious justification, no religious justification, the economic reasons behind it, how much money you could make with the slave system, or was the free labor system better? All those sort of arguments, go over those, think about those. That may be one. Another one, slave culture, both in the South and as a slave. What was it like being a slave? How terrible was it? We'll talk about the myth of terror, all that sort of stuff, and the reality of the situation. But also talk about slave culture for the South, the antebellum era, the how slavery went from being sort of almost everyone had a slave to only the very, very rich having a slave. How it was a symbol of status. How slavery came to mean sort of states' rights in a lot of ways. Looking back on, stuff like that. Very important stuff. Was slavery the cause of the Civil War? I wouldn't be surprised if this was it. I don't know about that. This may be, was it the cause of the Civil War? That may be a question for the actual test, but I bring up this question because Dr. Stoll is very clear about it. Yes, slavery was the cause of the Civil War. It's not all about states' rights. Slavery was the cause of the Civil War. He's big on that. He talks about it all the time. Okay, so definitely check that out. Look into what exactly it was about slavery that caused that. A timeline. Okay, a timeline. I'm not saying he's going to say, hey, draw a timeline. I'm just saying keep some events in mind. When we're talking about, for example, 1808, slavery ban, talk about the Missouri Compromise, talk about the Compromise of 1850, the Kansas-Nebraska Compromise, all these sort of things and how they culminate towards slavery getting to the Civil War, basically. And that kind of goes with the legislation, too. Compromise of 1850, 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment, all this sort of stuff that feeds into slavery. I know that's pretty vague for the slavery one, but I don't know where to focus in on. I could spend hours going over all the stuff we talked about with slavery. So what you should do is go to your slave notes, go over it, see if you can find out the beginning, the middle, and the end for slavery, and get as much information as you can on that. Okay? So that's sort of a brief overview of what may be on those cumulative essays. Again, maybe. I don't know for sure. But yeah, that's going to be it for now. I hope these help out. I, again, apologize that these came out so late, had some major technical difficulties, but hopefully 24 hours before the test. This will help out a little bit. That's it. See you guys later. Again, good luck on that final.